What's going on, guys? Phys here once again. So this is going to be the Vaal Blade Flurry POV. Now, huge disclaimer before this one starts, as with all the previous POVs, this is just a theoretical POV that I made. Everything looks good on paper. But that being said, and not that I've had really much kickback from anybody regarding the POVs for this league, but be warned, this league, since we didn't get a lot of new stuff, there are some new toys to play with, but there's not, there's not tons. I really wanted to challenge myself. I talked a little bit about this in the past, but I wanted to really challenge myself, try to like really think outside the box for some things and try to make some stuff HCSSF viable that normally I would not even consider. This is one of those things. This is very likely not the best way to play Vaal Blade Flurry, but it is a very unique way to play Vaal Blade Flurry that I believe should be more than viable. At the very least, the build's centered around mapping. And obviously you can tell if it's a Blade Flurry build centered around mapping, which is typically Blade Flurry's weakness, it relies very heavily on Vaal Blade Flurry, which is why I was waiting on the gym info to be released. And luckily, Vaal Blade Flurry is just as insane, as I was expecting it to be. That's very good news. It means everything works even better than what I was hoping it would be. So there's one big note here. It doesn't look, it depends on the channel time, because Vaal Blade Flurry doesn't deal damage while it's being cast. It doesn't deal any damage while it's being cast, but it does have a ton of damage on the actual hit. So there is, funnily enough, there is shenanigans you could do with like a worm flask. People ask this on like every video I ever release. What if you added the worm flask? What if you did this with Writhing Jar? That you could unironically use that for this on bosses to get a bunch of extra damage. Because Vaal Blade Flurry doesn't deal any damage while it's being channeled. It only does like a big burst of damage after it's finished being channeled. So a lot of how useful this is on single target comes down to how fast you can channel it. So I did the math yesterday. I probably should have refreshed before I recorded this video, but I'm pretty sure it's 16 stages. So there's a huge caveat here. Basically, when you start channeling Vaal Blade Flurry, it has a ton more base damage than the normal Blade Flurry. Like way more. You'll notice 343% of base versus 49% of base. But that's because Blade Flurry gains a more multiplier to its damage for every stage it's channeled. Now, even at max stacks for normal Blade Flurry, this still does significantly more. But Blade Flurry also has hit, it's hitting like 1 trillion times a second while you're channeling it. So it's not super, it's not like this is just straight up better. So if you channel all the stages really fast to get that huge burst of damage, it would be worth it. But this is just something you'd have to weigh with how long you'd pit, how much damage you would do, and the amount of time it would take you to get your full Blade Flurry channel off, and then see which number is higher. If your Vaal Blade Flurry damage is higher, then it would be worth using this in like a bossing scenario. And if it's not, then it's not worth using. And this is only really relevant for pinnacle bosses, because even most map bosses, most of them will have ads around them. So if any type of monster or boss has, or map boss has ads around it, then this is absolutely use this, because it'll deal a ton of damage. Now, what else is different? You'll notice that the base attack speed of Blade Flurry is, Vaal Blade Flurry is double that of normal Blade Flurry, 160% versus 320%. This means that it will channel much faster. So this is really important, because from the looks of the skill, you cannot stop channeling it. You have to go to max stack. So it says the base radius is 10. The channeling stops when the total radius reaches 90, and it gains 5 radius per stage, which means if it's gaining 5 radius per stage, that means you need 80 radius. So that would be 80 divided by 5 is how much? 16. Okay, I was correct. Sick. So basically you can't let go of this. You can't just tap it and let go. You have to channel all 16. Now, granted that it has 320% attack speed, you should charge this damn near instantly, because I think my POB, this is a lot of preamble before you get into the POB, but my POB has 10.3 attacks per second. So, that's with 160% of base. So if you just double that, then we're doing what, 21 attack speed, which means we should be able to do 16 stages like pretty much instantly. So, yeah, it looks good. Aside from that, it will blind enemies with a bunch of extra blind effects, surprisingly, and you take less damage while channeling. Now, that's not really going to matter for us, because like we just went through, we should channel this pretty much instantly. It does only store 1 use, but here's a cool thing. It needs 30 souls, and it stores 1 use, but its soul gain prevention is 3 seconds, which is really cool. That means we're going to have this up all the time throughout the map. You're going to be spamming this as you go throughout the map, which should make clearing on this build very, very smooth. Because if you look at the Vaal Blade Flurry showcase video, the actual, like, the ring that expanded from the character, monsters were getting hit well outside of that ring. Like, when you get a full charge Vaal Blade Flurry, the AoE, with no AoE investment whatsoever, like literally 0, the AoE is going to be more than a screen. To really put this into perspective, the AoE will be absolutely massive, and we will have that damage pretty much instantly. So very, very big deal. This will feel very good to clear with. So yeah, all that out of the way. Just keep in mind, this is experimental. This is by far the most experimental POB I have ever done. Now, I feel comfortable playing this in HCSSF. Some people are going to be like, bro, your life is low. I know. There's a lot of defensive layers stacked into this character, but it would be susceptible to just straight one-shots. So we'll get into it. What is the crux of this character, and why did I feel the need to add so many disclaimers? Well, this is a dual-wield Dagger Blade Flurry build. Now, this is a full Phys to elemental conversion build. It is not a added elemental damage build. That means we're scaling physical damage and converting it to elemental damage. Now, it is a raider for many reasons, right? So we want a bunch of attack speed because Blade Flurry, right? So raider is always a good option there. And then I really wanted something that would kind of facilitate Phys to LE conversion. And I'll get into why in a short bit, but basically the reason I wanted something that would really work or the reason why Raider, I guess, would really work for Phys to LE conversion is simply because Avatar of the Vaal, it works very similar to how Inquisitor works, where basically any element you get, you can just stack whatever element you want because you're dealing the same amount of damage to every element. The same way that Inquisitor gets to basically ignore resistances, Raider being able to have very strong exposure to all resistances is like baby Inquisitor node. So it's very similar there. And then due to the kind of setup I had in mind, because I wanted to try a dual wield setup with Blade Flurry. I knew that. Originally I tried swords, but I couldn't cap my block with swords very easily. So I looked at the next best thing, and it was, funnily enough, daggers. Now here's the crux of the build with why daggers. One, I wanted to dual wield, and two, I wanted to dual wield while capping my block chance with versatile combatant. This is where the daggers come in, right? So we have 2 daggers using the Psi item base, which gives 6% chance to block attack damage per dagger via the implicit. Now, this means that we are getting 24% chance to block spell damage from our daggers. Just 24% spell block from our weapon implicits alone. Because with versatile combatant, any overcapped block chance is doubled and applied to spell block. So this would be 6% attack block applied to spell damage, as doubled would be 12%, and it's 12% for both, so 24%. Now, why am I going pure Phys to LE conversion instead of just doing added elemental like you would with like a claw build? Well, 2 reasons. One, the daggers actually have pretty good base PDPS values, but aside from that, there's a dagger mastery here that gives you 15% more, so more multi, max physical attack damage with daggers. So with our daggers, we're dual wielding, right? So we're getting kind of, in a way, 30% more maximum physical attack damage total when you combine the 2 daggers together because we're dual wielding. Now, by its nature, when you are dual wielding, you get a 15% chance to block attack damage baseline, and you also get 10% more attack speed. And this attack speed modifier is a more multiplier that is applied after all of your other attack speed increasing modifiers, meaning it is very strong, and that is why our attack rate is so incredibly high. And remember, anytime you channel Vaal Blade Flurry, this number will double. So this is a very, very fast build. Now, I'll address the elephant in the room first and foremost. Phys, why is your life so low? Well, I have 2 variants of the tree, and I will go over what they are. But basically, the second variant of the tree is once you get a little bit of the gear, more advanced gear that I have in the PoE. Not like anything crazy, but you would need to meta mod something, which is why I made 2 separate trees. Because you'll want 1 tree before you are able to meta mod. So the double block tree is what I have, and it's what you'll want to be running once you've meta modded your chest. And this one has a little bit more life. You can see it's got 5k life, but obviously it is relatively low life, but you'll notice that the EHP is quite high. How am I getting such high EHP values with how low my life is? Well, we actually stack a ton of defensive layers into this little tiny health pool. Okay, so first and foremost, we are playing Raider, right? So we have Onslaught, and we have a bunch of Onslaught effect via Avatar of the Chase. Basically, this just makes us really fast. However, we get 10% more chance to evade attacks during Onslaught, which against Pinnacle bosses puts our evade chance at 66% with whatever we have on right now. Quartz Infusion gives us 40% chance to suppress spell damage and phasing. This is very big because we get phasing for free. We are actually able to use a Diamond Flask to increase our DPS. This is going to be a huge deal because we are not actually crit chance capped on this build. As hard as I tried to fit it in, I was not able to do it. Now, you can actually cap your crit chance, but it will come at the cost of other nodes that I ended up in the end deeming more important, and I'll get into that later. Anyway, continuing on from there, since we get 40% chance to suppress spell damage from our Ascendancy for free, and then we grab Inveterate as well, this means we're getting like 87%, I believe, 87% spell suppression from the tree total, which allows us to gear very aggressively since we don't have to really care about spell suppression on gear. We need 13% spell suppression on gear total combined, which is very easy to get. You can get like 1 tier 4 roll on your chest, which is like item level 40 or 50 or whatever it is. You can get like 2 other pieces that have literally bottom tier spell suppression rolls. It really doesn't matter. You can get it anywhere. It's so easy. So that allows us to gear very aggressively and, more importantly, worry about other stats. Okay, so Avatar of the Vaal, we have 50% chance to avoid elemental ailments, and we get that really strong exposure that I covered before. This node is very good both defensively and offensively because we have 50% chance to avoid elements while phasing, which we're permaphase, obviously. We go the whole thick skin wheel here as well, which is an additional, what is this, like 20 whatever percent, 4, 8, 12 plus 8. Yeah, so 20% from this, which means we have baseline 70% chance to avoid elemental ailments. And then we only need a 30% chance to avoid elemental ailments, which we're getting on our boots alone. And this is one of those things. I said you're allowed to gear more aggressively. This is what I was talking about. Not needing to worry about getting spell suppression rolls on gear means that the process of gearing becomes much easier, and we can focus on other important stats, like being able to cap our ailment immunity with just 1 item slot. Now, nearby, basically all elemental exposure. Why is this good? Because we're actually splitting our conversion between cold and lightning. So we're doing 40% Phys to cold via the cold mastery. We're getting an additional 10% Phys to cold via our glove implicit, and we're getting 50% Phys to lightning via our gym links. So we are 50% cold and 50% lightning conversion. So this node is giving us very strong exposure to both of those things. And then we are not using an elemental penetration support because we get 10% LE pen from forces of nature on the tree, as well as using Trinity, which is why I wanted to do dual element also, by the way. Trinity, which is a ton of damage. Not only is it a ton of damage, but it also gives us a bunch of elemental penetration. So this is very, very good. You can see as long as you have at least 25 resonance, which obviously on any Trinity build, you're going to be permanent 50. We get 16% LE pen there, and we get 10% LE pen from forces of nature, as well as a very, very strong 20% resistance elemental exposure via Avatar of the Vaal. So this actually means that penetration is not super good for us as a support gem, which allows us to, again, grab other nodes. So with that out of the way, that is the Ascendancy explained. So from there, we're going to kind of just path through the tree. We start off going here, grabbing accuracy and attack speed nodes through finesse. We grab Heart of the Oak and Primal Spirit. Primal Spirit is a must take. The mana and stuff is very useful, but the big thing here is that we really want that strength and int. Getting a lot of strength and int on this build is mandatory due to the supports and other things that we're using. So anywhere we can get strength and int is very important. And again, because we don't need to worry about getting spell suppression and whatnot on gear, we prioritize getting a lot of attributes via our equipment. Anyway, from there, Heart of the Oak, super good. And then we path through one with Nature, which is a bunch of LE damage and crit. And then Intuition, it's a life node, also gives us evasion and spell suppression. From there, the other nodes, you know, grabbing Winter Spirit, we're gaining 10% Phys is extra cold, which is really good, along with the Cold Mastery. Primeval Force is very, very good. I actually path through the right side, since we're doing 50% converted to shock, 50% of our Phys converted to shock. Getting 20% increased effective non-damaging ailments means our shocks will be stronger. There is also the possibility, since Vaal Blade Flurry is one really big hit, even if technically it normally, I am pretty sure that it will be worth using in single target because of how fast we could get the cast off. But even if it wasn't in terms of like numbers, it probably still would be in terms of overall, because the hit is so strong that it would apply a very strong shock, much stronger than what we would get from our normal Blade Flurry. So keep that in mind. We're also taking the Elemental Mastery for gain 10% of physical damage is extra damage of a random element. This is a very strong node considering, you know, all the points I just addressed. Since all of our elemental penetration and resist shred is global. So we path through Mark the Prey here. So we get, we path through the top side because we want 30% increased crit strike chance against marked enemies. And then this is marked enemies take 10% increased damage. And we have the Mark Mastery for 25% increased effective marks. So very, very strong marks here, which, as you would imagine, being a crit build, we are using Assassin's Mark. Yep. So the ugly part, it's so funny how there's so many ugly squares on the tree now, but it is unfortunately necessary. We path through Brutal Blade. Now this is a sword node. But this is no different from really pathing like shield nodes elsewhere on the tree that don't give you any damage. So these nodes don't really do much for us, but it does cap our crit chance. And by crit chance, I mean block chance. Now, in the other tree, we actually spec out of this, but this is what you would click into early game before you get some of your gear locked down in order to cap your block chance. From there, we're moving down the tree, like I already said. Thick Skin with the Life Mastery for 50 life. We're grabbing our other Life Mastery up here for the 10% increased life. And then we go through Twin Terrors. So what does Twin Terrors do? It basically gives you a bunch of crit and accuracy while dual wielding. And we take the dual wielding mastery for plus 1% to offhand crit strike chance. From there, we grab Mark for Death, which gives us Coaling Strike, which is very cool. We get Coaling Strike for free. The hits leading up to it are Mark Effect and increased damage, and then we grab the Mastery for a chance to gain Frenzy Charge when you hit your marked enemy, which means we do have Frenzy Charges during bossing, which is very cool. From there, we path Blade Barrier and Ambidexterity. So Blade Barrier is just block, it's damage and block. That's all it is leading up to it. And then Ambidexterity is a ton of attack speed and damage. It's a very, very strong node. Now this is why we kind of come all the way down here. Versatile Combatant. This is obviously what is allowing us to cap our block chance. This is like, you know, very important keystone for the build. And we path up through Swagger, which gives us a chance to gain a Frenzy Charge when we block, and just a bunch of extra block chance. We also take the Mastery for 3% increased attack damage per 5% chance to block attack damage. So since we have 50%, this is, you know, 30% increased attack damage for one node, which isn't bad. Now, moving on from there, like I said earlier, we path through Inveterate, and we take the Spell Suppression Mastery for crit chance increase based on spell suppression. So this is 100% increased crit chance. Very nice. Forces of Nature, as described earlier. Revenge of the Hunted for life and evasion. Pathing Charisma for one of our aura reservation efficiency nodes. From there, Coordination is very, very good. It's more int. it's a bunch of attack speed, which we love. Will of Blades, which is just Phys damage, which again, we're converting, and increased crit chance. And then Blood Siphon, which is strength and life, as well as life gain on kill. Now we get to our first Dagger mastery, which is very strong. So the nodes leading up to it are very interesting. They actually give movement speed, as well as increased damage. Now, From the Shadows itself is 40% increased elusive effect and attack speed with daggers. Now, anyone who's played a elusive stacking, like a Nightblade build in the past, like 9 months, will, be familiar with this node, because even claw builds take this node to get just that elusive effect. However, since we're actually using daggers, it's doubly as good for us. Now, again, this is the Dagger mastery with 15% more maximum physical attack damage with daggers. This is very good. This is a ton of damage. And from there, we path Clever Thief. This is how we're getting all of our life and mana leech. And then also life and mana gained on hit with attacks. Since this may not seem like a lot, but this is actually a decent amount of flat life and mana gained on hit. Like, you gotta think, you're hitting literally 10 times a second. Like, this is actually a lot. I know it seems like a meme, but it's a decent amount. From there, we have Blood Drinker, just another life node with life gain on kill. And then this is where our pathing stops here at the top of the tree, the final Dagger node. So this is basically just, on the bottom side, a bunch of damage, crit chance, and crit multi. And then on the top side, it's a bunch of attack speed and damage, with the final node actually giving us accuracy, as well as the other, pre-listed things. This is where we're grabbing our final Dagger mastery with 40% crit strike multi for skills supported by Nightblade, which we are using Nightblade, obviously, so a lot of damage from this node as well. Now, here's the other cool thing. There are a lot of nodes that give us accuracy kind of like for free, which really makes capping our accuracy very, very easy. So there's a ton of accuracy we get for free on the tree from the Dagger nodes and the dual wielding nodes, and then we pair that with we're running precision. So when we pair that with precision, you actually, which I outlined this in the nodes, you only need one tier 3 accuracy roll or higher, or roughly 330 combined accuracy on gear to cap your hit chance, which, if you've played any build ever that needs accuracy, you will know that this is a ridiculously low number. Like I said, it's one tier 3 accuracy roll or higher on any piece of gear, which for like accessories, that's like a tier 2 accuracy roll, maybe a bottom rolled tier 1 accuracy roll, I'm not sure. But the point being is, a lot of these things you don't really have to think about getting. You will basically cap your spell suppression for free. You will basically cap your accuracy for free as well. So that is the passive tree in a nutshell. Now, basically, I'll go over the changes in the gear section later, but with the double block chest tree, what effectively changes is you are able to pull out a Brutal Blade, which is 5 points, and then you'll be able to cap your block chance and spell block by taking weapon artistry instead, which is damage and some melee strike range. And then we spend those passive points grabbing kind of whatever you want. I used it grabbing a little bit more life and grabbing Deflection. So why did I grab Deflection? Well, Deflection has a 25% chance to grant you an endurance charge when you block, and since we have 50% chance to block attack and spell damage, it is safe to assume that we will have reasonable uptime on this. Now, here is the caveat, and I have this in the links. I have Enduring Cry in the links as well, because I'm not sure. I'm not really sure how reliable this would be, right? So there's a lot of different ways we can use to get endurance charges. You could metamod your rings, or just get unveils for endurance charges, minimum endurance charges. Or you could use Enduring Cry on bosses. Now, while mapping, it is safe to assume you will most of the time, I think even in like a worst case scenario, you'll most of the time have roughly 2 endurance charges. The real time that this would be like a huge concern is if like for bossing, because you typically aren't getting hit a ton while bossing. I think stuff like Maven, you would have reasonable uptime on this for, I suppose, because there's so much random crap like projectiles flying around that don't really deal any damage. But for most bosses, like think like Eater of Worlds and stuff like that, Searing Exarch, you don't really get hit much ever. So Deflection wouldn't really do a whole lot for you there. So that's why I did end up putting Enduring Cry in the links, and I ran Anomalous just because it gives increased war cry speed. But this is just something that remains to be seen. This is one of those things that I won't really know until I play with it and then see how it feels, right? But that's the difference. So you get to save some points by speccing out a Brutal Blade. You cap your block chance by taking Weapon Artistry, and then you have 3 passive points to kind of spend on whatever you want. You can go into Dazzling Strikes to get 100% crit chance all the time for free. You can go into Heartseeker to get more crit damage. There's like a million good nodes that you can take on the tree. There's so many good nodes, so it's really kind of just whatever you want to do. You could take more jewel sockets. Since we do, get frenzy charges even on single target, you could get max frenzy charges, kind of like I said, whatever you want to do. Anyway, so that's the passive tree. Now, in total, what are our defensive layers? Okay, we are fully ailment immune via 100% chance to avoid ailments. We are spell suppression capped with Inveterate, which means we are taking 47% damage from suppressed spells. We are attack and spell block capped, attack block and spell block capped. Due to us using Blade Flurry, we have infused channeling, which is going to drastically decrease the damage we are taking from anything that shares our main attack's tags, which is attack, AoE, channeling, physical, or melee. And from there, we have blind. We have blind, and then we also have endurance charges, and we have fortify. Now, this is something that is roughly experimental. You should have this up, no problem. I did test this in live after the buffs that we got in, I believe, 3.19 to fortify duration and the increased amount of fortify that you get from dealing damage to monsters. Since we're doing full Phys to Ellie conversion, our Whirling Blades actually hits quite hard. So you can link Whirling Blades with fortify, and I've also linked it with Rage. So we actually get Rage while mapping as well, to go even faster. Not mandatory by any means, but it is just to like map faster and potentially have the Zerk up for like huge nuke damage. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself with the gym links, but basically we link Whirling Blades with fortify, and this when you just Whirling Blades through like enemies, this will give you 20 fortify on a 6-second duration. So you're going to be this has synergy, especially with Vaal Blade Flurry, because with Vaal Blade Flurry, you kind of like want to be in the middle of the screen with mobs all around you to like really capitalize on its AoE potential. So you're going to be Whirling Blades through a lot of mobs, just like you would on any build anyway. So you do actually upkeep your fortify. Now, the ability to keep this up during bossing is... I didn't test that part. That's all I'll say. Maybe you can... I would imagine it's probably worth it to do it on bosses, even if you don't get 20 fortify, even if you only get like 10 fortify for like Whirling Bladesing through Maven. Just Whirling Bladesing, because when you're following her around the arena, you're going to be hitting her with Whirling Blades, right? So like just making sure that you're upkeeping it once every 6 seconds for like a 10-15% damage reduction buff is very much worth it. So yes, the build is relatively low on life, especially for hardcore. However, it has many defensive layers that drastically give it very respectable EHP. Now, do note that this is with flasks on, but this build has nothing to worry about really while mapping. Most of the danger is going to come from getting one shot, and most one shot danger is via bossing. So this build may be really solid for bossing or not, but I kind of just wanted to build it with with mapping in mind. I'm not saying it will be bad at bossing, I just don't know yet, right? So that is all the defensive layers kind of like wrapped up. And from there, I guess we'll go into the links. So we're using Blade Flurry linked with elemental damage with attacks, Trinity support, infused channeling, Nightblade, and Phys to lightning. Not really a lot to go over with here. These are definitely the best links. Originally, I was using Fortify in the main links, but it just wasn't worth it. So I dropped that and I threw it in my movement skill instead. Moving into our helmet slot, we're running Precision, Determination, Defiance Banner, and Herald of Ice. Now this is, as you guys can probably imagine, this linked with Vaal Blade Flurry is going to make clearing a dream. It's going to feel amazing. Since we don't really scale AoE at all, and we don't need to because of how crazy Vaal Blade Flurry is, but since we don't scale it at all, when we do need to use normal Blade Flurry, we only have a radius of 13, which is quite small. So Herald of Ice will help with that. It'll basically help us pop an entire pack without needing to worry about stragglers or tiny AoE. Moving on from there, we have Ancestral Protector and Vaal Ancestral War Chief linked with multiple totems. This is just too much damage to not use. It is what it is. Hopefully this is gone next patch. Rage. Blood Rage. This is for frenzy charges while mapping and running around and killing stuff, as well as just a bunch of damage from the extra attack speed it grants. Now, if the degen doesn't feel good, you can just take this off. You only lose 5% damage. You can just take this off for mapping, and then you'll still be able to pretty much upkeep your frenzy charges anyway, considering you get them on block and anytime you kill a marked enemy, which you'll be killing marked enemies a lot since it marks rare monsters too, not just unique ones. So you can uncheck this if the degen is uncomfortable, because we don't really have much like raw life regen. We do have tons of leech and we hit very fast, but this means like if you guys have experienced it before, especially like maybe on like a Rite of Ruin build or something where like you have Blood Rage up and you're like running around and there's no monsters to kill or whatever, and your life is like slowly degenning. Now we're only degenning 100 life or like 150 life a second, which isn't like terrible. And the ground degens in the game have been largely removed and or nerfed. So this really shouldn't be an issue, but it is one of those things where it isn't actually mandatory to run Blood Rage at all. So if you do need to drop a link, or you feel uncomfortable with the degen, maybe you tend to map slower and you take your time with things, maybe you don't like degenning between packs and stuff, you can always just take this out of your sockets if you want to. Now, in our boots, we're running Whirling Blades with Rage and Fortify support, linked with Blood and Sand. This is our final aura that we're running. Now, I have, like I said earlier, Enduring Cry here and Berserk. So what you would do while bossing is probably replace Rage with Enduring Cry to upkeep your endurance charges on the boss, because you really want that survivability bonus. And then Berserk is just something that you can fit in should you decide to drop Blood Rage or whatnot. This is something I just kind of left it in the link so you can kind of decide what you want, because there is, you know, there is the ability to just pick and choose, you know, kind of like what you prioritize or what you would want there. I just left them in as options because some of these things we just don't know until the build is played, right? Now, in our first hand, we're using Assassin's Mark on hit with Life Tap, and in our second hand, it's just our cast when damage taken setup, linked with Frostblink, our, you know, secondary movement skill. So that is all the gym links. If you guys have any questions on that, let me know. Now for the weapons. Now this is pretty much a staple at this point. Anybody curious? For weapon bases that I'm not really sure like what a good number looks like, my benchmark is just putting, for Phys weapons at least, my benchmark is just putting 3 tier 3 rolls on the attack speed, the percent increased Phys, and the flat Phys damage. This is a very, very, very easy item to craft and get, especially like even if you need 2 of them, this is still very easy to get. And then all I did was bench craft on these. It shows up as 2 separate crafts, but it is the same craft. Strength and int with crit strike chance. Like I said, this is it's really hard to get all the strength and int we need for the build. So we actually essence craft our belt for attributes, and we use this bench craft here because we do need more crit chance, and we really, really like the attribute rolls. So that's what this is. And again, these weapons are very easy to get because the way that you would craft this is basically doing, hold on, let me double check and make sure this is the right yeah, so this benchcraft is a suffix. So the way that you would craft this is you'd be getting contempt essences and forcing on the flat Phys via the contempt essence, and then all you need to do is hit percent Phys and attack speed, which is really easy to do because you don't need actually a tier 3 percent Phys roll. You can get like a tier 5% Phys roll with a hybrid percent Phys roll as well, which is also more accuracy. So, you know, it's very, trust me, it's very easy to get a weapon around this level. Yeah, and then when you add in like meta modding and stuff like that, or like prefixes can't be changed, or using Ashling slams and whatnot, there's as well as the addition of fracturing orbs, you're going to be able to make a weapon like literally twice as good as this, and when it comes to like actual endgame investment. So don't worry about the stuff. I always try to make the POBs pretty modest for the most part, as like something to be built upon, not as like the end game goal, if that makes sense. So it's just the same dagger in both hands. This is what I'm going to be looking for both of them. Now, if you happen to get like crit multi or raw crit chance on there, that's really, really good. But that's basically what you would want. Phys damage, percent Phys damage, hybrid percent Phys damage, attack speed, and then an open suffix for the benchcraft, as well as like crit multi. Now, in the helmet, the gear on this character is actually more important than it has been on previous characters, which is kind of funny. Considering you can see that there's nothing here. There's literally only life on this helmet. There's tier 2 life on this helmet, right? So with our implicits, we have life, and I actually essence crafted this. So if you use a loathing essence, I'm not sure why it shows up as a custom mod, but if you use a loathing essence, it will give you 7 to 8% increased mana reservation efficiency of skills. So you want to craft your helmet with loathing essences, and then that's literally it. You can have whatever else. So obviously, I don't put like resistances in the configs because it's very redundant. So you just want to make sure that you're getting a few resist rolls on your gear, like whatever, to cap your resist. But aside from that, you only need life. That's only a mandatory thing. And for our benchcraft, we're benchcrafting on Phys taken as fire damage. And then our Exarch and Eater implicits are reduced mana cost of attacks, and Phys taken is fire as well. So our helmet will give us 12%. So we also get a lot of this on the tree, or from our gear as well, which really helps with the defensive layer in terms of mitigating damage. Since we're a full right side build and we're using hybrid bases, we actually don't get a ton of armor, as you can see. So the endurance charges paired with a bunch of Phys taken as elemental damage really helps us tank physical damage a lot more. So you can see that's why the number is so high. Moving on from there to the chest piece. I'm running just a whatever chest piece. Again, it's life and then spell suppression, but like I said, this is literally a tier 3 suppression roll, but you don't need this. You can get, as covered before, you need 13% total spell suppression across all of your gear. So this isn't a mandatory roll. You don't need a chest with suppression on it at all. You don't want it. So for our implicits, I'll go over that first. For the implicits on the chest piece, we're using increased R effect and then increased determination effect. And then for the actual stats on the chest piece, it's just life. And then this is what I have meta modded on. I have it multi-modded. It's the Gravicious Craft, which is 6% of Phys taken as fire, 6% of Phys taken as lightning. That's the Gravicious Craft. And then also chance to block attack damage. This is what the trees are for. So before you get that attack to block, chance to block attack damage multi-mod on your chest, you want to be running the default tree. Once you get that, you can swap to the double block chest setup. Now for the gloves, again, it's just life, and then I put in a like low Phys to attacks. It's 4 to 7 Phys to attacks. I just put in some crap to give people an idea, because otherwise I would literally just have like life in most of the slots. And then I put my accuracy roll on the gloves, because why not? But again, this is variable. If you forget, all of this is outlined in the notes section. So the important thing with the gloves is the implicits. We're getting 50% chance to intimidate enemies on hit, which obviously when we're hitting 10 to 11 times a second, this is going to be up 100% of the time. This is a huge damage increase. And then we're also using the implicit to finish converting our Phys to elemental damage. And moving on from there, our boots. Now the boots are pretty important here. So we're using two-tone boots, which we will be replacing the implicit with. Not mandatory, but it is quite a big damage increase. You want to increase action speed and gain 4% of Phys damage as extra lightning damage. Now you can do extra cold or extra fire if you want to. It doesn't really matter. The reason I chose Phys as extra lightning is to get stronger shocks. But you know, realistically, at like the beginning of League and you're just trying to get this on your boots, any Phys damage conversion is going to be a decent damage increase. Now the boots have life, movement speed, And then the increased chance to avoid elemental ailments. Now, I crafted this with a deafening essence, okay? And the reason I used a deafening is because we really only need life. We just want a good enough life roll to be satisfied. And then that's it. Because the benchcraft for the increased effect of non-damaging ailments is just a bonus. You don't need that. That is, again, to get a stronger chill and or shock on like an endgame boss. It's not mandatory whatsoever. It's just to give people an idea of like what they would want. Because typically what I do is I benchcraft on move speed with onslaught on kill, or move speed and immune to chill. But since we're already ailment immune, there's something else you need to fill that slot with. So if you just get a good life roll with that 30% chance to avoid elemental ailments, then cool, craft on move speed and it's whatever. Now, why a deafening? Because deafening guarantees we get at least 31%. If you use a shrieking, it can roll 25 to 30%, and we need exactly 30%. So that's kind of rolling the dice for a 1 in 5 chance. Whereas if you just get 3 shriekings and upgrade it to a deafening, you get a guaranteed chance. So it may sound scary since I say we're using deafening essences, but you only really need the essence mod and then life, and the other stats aren't really important at all. So it will actually be much easier to craft than it may look at first glance. Now, in the ring slot, again, pretty easy here. It's just life, and then I rolled elemental damage with attacks. It's only a tier 3 roll, so it's like a low tier. This isn't padded. And it doesn't really matter. So everything here, like all these pieces you see that have a bunch of empty slots, like the helmet and whatnot, this means that, you know, these are going to be taken. You don't want literally nothing. These are going to be taken up by like resistance rolls and stuff. It means there's a lot of leeway in where you have your stats, and you know, it just makes gearing should be incredibly easy for this character. So yeah, just a flat life roll, some elemental damage with attacks, and then everything else is open. You just want to make sure that you're bench crafting on Elrion, channeling crafts to make Blade Flurry not cost a trillion mana a second, since we have such high attack speed. And then I just have this ring in both slots. It's the same ring. So like more stuff you can do if you wanted to, is you could get attack speed here. You could get some attributes here. I think there might be an essence for crit on rings. Yeah, so if you use Shrieking Essences, or if you use Scorn Essences, you can get crit multi. If you use Loathing Essences, you can get crit chance. So that would be a great way to actually craft your rings, because that would guarantee another useful mod. Another thing you can do with all these open affix slots is, like I said before, you could either spam unveils, ashling hits, or just multi-mod on your Elrion craft and minimum endurance charges to kind of delete the need to use Enduring Cry and to save 2 passive points on the tree. It just, you know, kind of depends however you want to do it, right? So the belt, again, just life, so many open rolls. I went ahead and bench crafted on elemental damage with attacks because there's nothing else you really need. You just want to make sure that you are crafting your belt with an essence of rage, which will guarantee strength. And since we really only care about getting a life roll with some resist rolls, it will be incredibly easy to craft. I just use Shriekings. Shriekings are the default essence I use for crafting, but if you want to, you could use a Deafening. It doesn't really matter. It'd give you a little bit extra life and melee damage, but that's it. For the belt, I have for the jewel I have in the belt, rather. It's just Murderous rolled with life and crit chance, but yeah, there's like a trillion beneficial nodes you can get on here. You could get more attributes. You could get accuracy. You could get attack speed. You could get crit multi. You could get crit chance. You can get chaos res if you need resistances. You can get, you know, whatever resistances. You can get extra block. You can get armor. Like there's a trillion, and then these are getting buffed next league too. The jewel mods are getting pretty massively buffed. So there's excuse me, there's like a trillion things you can get on jewels. So whatever you want, really. And the flasks, same as always for the most part. A corrupting blood removal life flask with all prefixes rolled masochist, so charge gain on hit. Granite with increased armor, jade with increased evasion, quicksilver with reduced effective curses, and a diamond flask with increased crit chance during flask effect. This will be a big damage burst whenever you can have this up. So that is all the gear. That is all the gems. That is the tree. And the notes just kind of go over like stuff for like gearing and different options you have and whatnot. So yeah, that's everything. The config tree for those curious. I have enemy blinded. I just assumed a 15% shock. With Vaal Blade Flurry, it would definitely be bigger than this, especially if you have all this increased effect of non-damaging ailments. I didn't really know what to put there. This is not necessary at all, I don't think. I can't remember why I had that. Oh yeah. So that 7% that I had on the config there is for before you swap over. So don't worry about that. And then I had 200% increased curse effectiveness to test Assassin's Mark against the alternatives. Assassin's Mark, as you would expect, is just straight better. And it's also how we're generating power charges too. So I would need to find a different way to generate them if we dropped it. So frenzy charges are checked because obviously we have max frenzy charges all the time. Endurance charges are checked. You can simulate 2 versus 3 of them depending on what methods you're using to sustain them. Onslaught is checked, which does literally nothing since we get it via Ascendancy anyway. Phasing, again, does nothing. Fortify is checked. Elusive is obviously checked. And then Rage. That's also something I forgot to mention. Elusiveness is a defensive layer as well. But yeah, there's a ton of defensive layers. Anyway, if you guys have any questions, the build looks really, really solid in PoB. I'm really excited to try it out. Yeah, if you guys have any questions or whatever, feel free to let me know. I will be doing a build diary on this at some point. I'm very excited about Vaal Blade Flurry. Blade Flurry is the first skill I ever played in PoE, and Vaal Blade Flurry looked really, really cool when they first showed it. So I'm glad it ended up being strong. It ended up looking really, really good, and I can't wait to play this build. It won't be my league starter, but I will be doing a build diary on it at some point within the first few weeks of the league. Anyway. Appreciate you guys a bunch. I need to upload like 5 more videos. I'm so scared for my voice. It's 3 a.m. on Thursday morning. So I'm really quickly running out of time. I may not have enough time to do all the videos I want to before league start. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed the video, please leave me a thumbs up. If you didn't, feel free to leave me a thumbs down and leave some constructive criticism down below in the comments. And if you would like to support me, please do subscribe. I'm very active on my YouTube. Tons of PoE related content, build diaries, you know, topical rant pieces based on like things going on in the community, and you know, like opinion pieces, obviously like theoretical POBs and stuff like that. So tons of content coming on the channel in the coming weeks as well. I really want to try to boost my sub count this league. I would like to hit 5,000 subs. I know this is like crazy unrealistic, but it'd be really cool if I could get it. I want to try to hit 5,000 subs by the end of 3.20. Other avenues to contact me and or support me, you can follow me on Twitter. I need more Twitter followers because I have none. They're all like unrelated to PoE, so I'm too scared to tweet about PoE stuff most of the time to a bunch of people who don't even know what PoE is. And then Discord, you join my Discord. There's a bunch of people that are active all the time, you know, within my community, as well as I'm very, very active. If you ask anybody, maybe in the comments they'll vouch, I'm very active in my Discord. And I offer basically 24/7 whenever I'm awake, help with builds and like PoE related questions. It's all free. I don't charge anything for it. You can just come in there, do whatever, and I will help everyone to the best of my abilities. So feel free to join my Discord. And then finally, over on Twitch, I'll be pushing the HCSSF ladder on League Start as always. Right now, I'm leaning towards League starting with Volcanic Fisher, I believe was the name of the skill. That is what I'm leaning towards to actually League Start with. So if you guys want to see me pushing ladder on League Start, or you just want to like chill out, hang out, or you have questions on the day of the launch, feel free to stop by there because I will be streaming like 20+ hours on day 1 and the following days as well. So yeah, I believe that's everything. I will see you guys in the next video. If this is the last one you see before Friday, have a good one. I hope everybody has a good league start, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.